Hello there, and welcome to our video discussion of Twin Peaks: The Return. This video we'll be talking about episode 14, We Are Like the Dreamer. And I'm William, and with me is
Sean.
And we'll go through this episode, so full spoilers on this. We've done these recap videos for all the episodes so far, and we'll be continuing to do these through the end.
And two, make sure you subscribe, because I think after we get done with this series, we'll probably still do some Twin Peaks stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. So depending on what that is, the book's coming out in October, two of them. So make sure you subscribe and stick with us. And also, if you have thoughts on Twin Peaks content you'd like to see, let us know, because we love this series, so it's fun to just make stuff about it.
Yeah, so if you've seen the original series and you've seen all the way through, you've seen Fire Walk With Me, but you haven't watched the alternate pilot for the original series, I did a video a couple of years ago where I showed I didn't really do much before. I just pulled a clip, but it's like the major parts that are different in the European pilot versus the American pilot. Because the European pilot was it was like part of a deal with like different broadcasting networks and securing money to film it, where it could be sold as a standalone film in Europe if it wasn't picked up as a pilot. So it has additional footage, which has stuff that shows up in later episodes of Twin Peaks, and it was kind of something they just kind of came up with to wrap it up, because I think it's like there's less than 20 minutes of footage, or around 20 minutes of footage in total added to the end of the American pilot that shows, who the killer of Laura Palmer was and stuff. And in a roundabout way, it's somewhat what happened. The killer is the same killer, kind of, to some extent. Like, you just have to go watch. It shows stuff with Mike and Bob that doesn't happen in the series. But, it's interesting to watch that. And then I think that was where the Red Room scene and all that stuff came from, that Lynch likes so much that it got into the regular series. So you can check that video out if you haven't seen it, or you don't have like the different DVD box sets that have it. Like, wasn't it the gold box was the first initial big set, and then the
complete mystery,
and all that stuff. So you can check that out if you don't have either of those to see that different version of the pilot. Like I said, there's just additional footage added on to it, but that's just a video that we have out there that I know that a lot of people have watched, just looking at the statistics for it in the past few months. But getting into episode 14, the pacing on these episodes has been kind of different, because you had like episode 8, which was all just like giving you existential stuff that seems like an existential art film that in reality is a lot of backstory on things and told in a very non-conventional way. And then you have episodes that
some episodes that seem like they are just a series of one-off scenes or events that you really aren't sure where they're leading, and it's like now we're starting to get those are starting to make more sense now. You've had some of those that maybe have turned some people off because the point wasn't made right away as far as their significance, or even just like a prime example is that first Audrey scene where people were like that they hated the end of that episode. Not everybody, but a lot of people were very vocal about that. And then the next episode revealed enough more, I think, to kind of maybe satisfy
or get people more intrigued.
Yeah.
Because Lynch has almost done, too, some anti-fan service with the introduction of Audrey not being what anybody expected or really wanted. And then giving you the James Hurley performance, which nobody really expected and or wanted. Because, at the Roadhouse, a lot of times the MC that introduces the musical acts has not been there. So then you have, him introduce the Nine Inch Nails performing a song. Like they're an actual real big band. Not that like everybody else is musicians too, but just like, having Nine Inch Nails perform something on a show, it's pretty out of the ordinary because it hasn't really happened.
And we know it happened because, he's worked with Lynch and stuff like that.
So he introduces them. They introduce James Hurley. Did you see the MC? It's like, oh man, is there another Nine Inch Nails performance? Because they had the, I think it was the Chromatics appear twice.
Or Nine Inch Nails opened for James Hurley.
Yeah, like based on the timeline and stuff, it's unclear when all the timeline is. So maybe based on the timeline, just because it seems like a lot of this stuff now, more and more, seems like it's told slightly out of order or not in chronological order. Maybe James Hurley opened for the Nine Inch Nails, but that would be weird to... Because some of the stuff feels like they may have shot it and they just took different scenes that didn't need to be told in chronological order and plugged them into episodes to help, pad the time or to alleviate tension or like, so I'm not sure how all that worked, and we'll have to wait till the end of the series to see like, was everything on the show in chronological order? Because like I said, more and more it seems like they're not.
Yeah, and there's possibly a reason for that. It could be the fact that there are some time rifts going on, or or people's even maybe perception of when events took place, and we are seeing maybe kind of their perception of it now or something. Just like in this episode when Gordon Cole and Albert all of a sudden remember that dream, or Albert is like, now I'm remembering it. Like there's something there with I think what people are kind of maybe even pulling out of their subconscious with Albert or something. It's like it's definitely meant to be intriguing just on the way it's presented, but it's not presented in a way like Pulp Fiction where it's like, oh, we're just going to show you these out of order and kind of shock you with these twists because of the way we've presented the story. It's very much about the characters and the story in this universe and like what this all means, the fact that everything is not possibly happening in chronological order.
Yeah, so in terms of what's happening in the episode, you do get a discussion between Albert and Tammy about the first Blue Rose case and about how it was Jeffries and Gordon Cole who were the agents on the case, and a woman shot and killed herself. There was two women. They were the same person, and she did not have a twin sister or anything. So a woman shot and killed another woman who then disappeared.
And they looked over and then saw that woman again.
Yeah, and then the body disappeared. And then the woman claimed she did not shoot and kill the person that doesn't exist. And the one who got shot said that she was like the Blue Rose. And Albert asked Tammy, like, once he gets all those details, asked her what the important part was. And she said that a Blue Rose is not a natural thing, just, implying that it had to be fabricated or designed or created. And that just kind of indicates, like, so was that somebody that was in the lodge and had a doppelganger? Was it a situation like with Dougie Jones where someone was fabricated for a purpose? So it's unclear exactly what happened in that case, but that gives you an idea of why they started the Blue Rose task force and the fact that it was Philip Jeffries and Gordon Cole.
I mean, imagine a series set in whenever this took place,
Yeah.
I don't know when this took place, the 60s or 70s? 70s?
It was the late 70s.
Yeah. So imagine a Gordon Cole, Philip Jeffries crime show called the Blue Rose Task Force. Where they just busted. It's just X-Files in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like,
or just like the X-Files.
I wish we could time jump to get that show. Like, unfortunately we can never get that show. But
Philip. But yeah, so then you see that
this show starts off with a bang with that. Well, I didn't really think we would necessarily ever get an explanation on the Blue Rose.
There's a lot of stuff they've explained that we never thought would be
like this episode is up there with, I mean, I can't believe how good it was.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. Like, it's just, it was phenomenal on all levels.
Yeah, I mean, like, in terms of, like, the story aspects, like, we always, speculate how do some of these storylines get tied together. This one started showing you a lot more how that's going to happen, I think. So you had that. You had Gordon call Sheriff Truman and talk to Lucy on the phone, and he didn't realize until he got patched into Truman that it was a different Truman than Harry Truman. It was his brother Frank. And then Frank Truman tells him about the pages from Laura Palmer's diary they found, and mentions there's two Coopers. And
so that kind of, and so you think, oh wait, he's gonna know now that there are two. Like they'll know that. At least Gordon Cole and them will kind of realize that. But because of that story told about the Blue Rose Task Force, I would almost think Gordon Cole would possibly already suspect that.
Well, when they saw Cooper for the first time, he said something wasn't right.
Yeah, I think he probably was already open to the idea that there are duplicates or two based on his first case ever.
Well, and two, even like when Tammy pointed out the fingerprint thing in a prior episode, like he was already suspecting that or aware of that or explained it.
So this seems like this may, confirm probably some suspicions he's had, which is going a long way. And he said that when he called the other FBI agents, he said they may be armed and dangerous.
Yeah,
he may be thinking this is. I don't know if he knew that there was evil Coop. I guess he just wants them to be careful, but and maybe he doesn't know how that works. But it's interesting that he said they may be armed and dangerous. I don't know, it puts a little fear in, like, oh God, are they gonna like be hostile towards poor Dougie?
So Gordon calls the FBI office in Las Vegas to tell them. Well, because too, there's a revelation. So Diane comes to join Gordon, Albert, and Tammy, and they ask her about the ring they found. They ask her if the night that she last saw him, if he mentioned Major Briggs, and she doesn't want to talk about it, but she does say yes, he mentioned him. And then they explained how they just found his body in the past week, and he just died within the past week. They didn't explain the age discrepancy of the body, but they talk about the ring they found that said to Dougie from Janie E, like on the ring in the inscription. And then Diane reveals that her half-sister's name is Janie E, and she's married to Douglas Jones. So that just brings questions up of that seems too coincidental to just, that seems too convenient and coincidental to just be, her half-sister just happened to marry the duplicate Cooper that, the Doppel Cooper created that was the evil duplicate of the FBI agent she supported. Like, that seems way too convenient. So, was she complicit in the false life of Dougie Jones being created? Or
did they pick Diane's half sister for a reason? Was there another reason? And two, is this the real Diane? We don't know. With the Sarah Palmer stuff towards the end of the episode, and we were talking earlier about how both of them are really into smoking and drinking, and it's we brought up before too that Major Briggs was very much against Bobby Briggs smoking ever.
Yeah.
He's like, you must never smoke. So, I wonder if there is, what's up with Diane? That's another thing we don't know yet.
Yeah.
She's been a great mystery in and of herself. That's been an awesome thread.
Yeah. Because too, she looked those coordinates up. We haven't seen her send the coordinates to anyone.
And then she texted something along the lines of do they know about Las Vegas yet? Or had they asked you about Las Vegas? Is that... Somebody else theorized that maybe she is leading them. Maybe she's knows that they're watching her.
Yeah.
And is trying to lead them for whatever reason. Or, is this all an act for her? And does she know about Dougie Jones? And they're saying, have they asked about Vegas? Do they know about the other?
Well, because if they've mentioned, if somebody asked her, do they know about Vegas? That means that I would have to think that she's vaguely aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
With Dougie and Janie E.
Yeah, unless there's just some other, thread within all that Dougie Janie stuff that has to do with all of this. And also too that when Gordon Cole walks in, the window washer was a very odd.
It was squeaking. It was squeaking loudly. So.
And he was turning his earpiece down, and somebody mentioned that is it the same squeaking sound that was being made maybe towards the end of the episode in the jail cell by the guy that was repeating what the blind lady was saying, or even similar to a monkey's screech, which is what we saw in Fire Walk With Me, the monkey's face for a moment, in the dark. Or was it something that was almost sending messages to him? Maybe he didn't necessarily know it, but maybe it was just giving him some information.
Yeah.
Maybe that was not necessarily transplanting dreams in his mind, but something there in his subconscious. Maybe it was something from the White Lodge telling him some information that he needed to do in order to put him down the right path.
I saw additional interpretation of that scene. I forget if it was from IndieWire or AV Club from the review, where it said that he has these hearing aids or this hearing device that helps him be able to hear conversations he's not necessarily close to because it amplifies everything. So it can allow him, it can be a benefit to him when he can hear conversations that are happening far away. But then it also makes something like someone just, an everyday thing like a window washer could be a possibly traumatic or difficult thing to deal with. So, how something that could be a strength or negative for him, how that varies by that situation.
It was moving in an odd fashion. I almost felt like it was moving in a jerking motion, kind of like the woodsmen do when they show up.
Or it seemed like it did not seem, because I work in an office building that's 40 stories tall, and I see window washers every now and then, and they don't do that. They don't go.
Yeah.
It's more just slow motion. It's not an erratic thing like that. At least the people who do it for a profession that I've seen don't.
Yeah, there was something obviously
something's going on
deliberate
there.
about that for sure.
But there's a lot of stuff in Lynch property, movies, shows, whatever, where things that make much sense, and it's just kind of like these weird one-offs that really amount to anything.
It's open to interpretation until the end of time.
So then we also see Hawk, Bobby, Andy, and Sheriff Truman go into the woods.
Wait, before that is the partial closer to the other storyline with Chad.
Oh, yeah.
Which was great.
So Chad is the crooked cop that was helping Richard Horn and supposedly tried to get the letter that was sent to the police department explaining that Richard Horn was the one that hit the young boy. And
I had heard somewhere that the she had a certain last name in the credits, the woman that was left for dead that wrote the letter.
Yeah.
And when the letter arrived, it was a different last name. I thought I had heard that it was an art department error on that end, and it was nothing, super significant. That's just what I've heard so far.
Regardless, she lived.
Yes.
And then I guess they were able to piece together that Lucy saw him taking the letter, that he was involved, and then but Truman says they were onto him for a while.
Yeah, I love that Lucy was cued in on it. I assume she was cued in on it. I just I love that they were a step ahead of him, because he's one of the dumbest guys.
Yeah.
Too, and it's just great to see him brought down like that. When they're going in the break room to eat, and they're not supposed to eat in the break room, so it's weird. They all
there's an earlier episode where they tell him Chad that he should not be eating in the break room, and they have all them in there
or the meeting room.
So they pull the guns on him and arrest him. So you have that happen,
and then is he in? No, we do not see him in the jail yet. That happens after
they just take him away. They have, I think it was Andy take him away.
Downstairs, yeah.
So then we see that the group of Bobby, Hawk, Truman, and Andy go into the woods to go to Jack Rabbit's palace to follow the note that Briggs left. And Bobby's talking about how his dad would go there, and he said not to go there without him. And then Truman says he hopes it's not just one of Major Briggs's tall tales. And they get there. And then they get to the tree, and then they go in the direction they're supposed to.
Somebody pointed out, too, the tree stump looks like almost where the fireman lives. Maybe that's the White Lodge,
Yeah.
They said it kind of reminded them of that. And then, too, don't forget they put dirt in their pockets.
Yes.
I was trying to, is that to keep them in this reality? Is it almost like they're grounded, like you would ground electricity?
Yeah.
Are they grounded to this world if they keep that dirt in their pockets, which... Later on, Andy is not grounded to it, but he doesn't necessarily get taken away to any dark place.
He comes back, though.
Yeah, so maybe that's a way to travel. Since Briggs traveled, so maybe that's how he did. He put it in his pocket, traveled, and then could come back.
Yeah, so they go over to the area, and they find a naked woman, who is the woman who was in an earlier episode. I believe it was episode 3, in the kind of purple room. The one where Cooper got sucked into the electrical socket and came back as Dougie Jones. We see her in the woods laying there naked, and her name is Naidu, I believe. And she was laying there, and Andy is touching her, or just holding her hand, in a reassuring way.
Yeah, comforting her.
And they see a vortex open in the sky, similar to what Gordon Cole saw when a couple episodes ago when they saw the one woodsman. And the Matthew Lillard character got his head exploded. So we see the vortex open up, and then Andy gets into what we assume is the White Lodge with what we now know as the fireman, who's not just a giant. He calls himself the fireman, and he shows Andy visual cues that are just kind of recounting things already seen in the series so far. So that he's showing him some of the stuff from the New Mexico stuff. An image of two Coopers that are kind of juxtaposed against each other. So evil Cooper and real Cooper, good Cooper, kind of, shaking and indicating that there's two of them. And then he sees Andy and Lucy in what looks like a hospital, and then an electrical post that has the number 6 on it 3 times.
Yeah, that was the last thing he saw. Then to start it out, too, he saw the Bob for a moment. Coming out of mother or whatever.
The Bob blob.
Yeah, woodsman at the store. He heard the phrase "got a light" and saw that. And then the reaction to the school with Laura after she passes away, and then basically everything else you mentioned. The Alice woman the blinking phone. And then when he sees the telephone pole, he gets pretty shocked, and he has that little device. Yeah, and then it goes back in there.
Yeah, the smoke or fog. And then he is back in the real world. And it shows, like you see Hawk and Truman and Bobby kind of walking around until they get into place around Jackrabbit's palace.
Almost like the Woodsman, where they blink or flash in and out of reality.
And then Andy comes around holding the woman, and he has a purpose, and he knows what to do. Mm-hmm. He says he needs to take her to the police station, put her in a cell so she's safe, and he now has information. And part of the reason I think that Andy was the one that was sucked into the lodge is that he's such like a good-hearted person that he's kind of incorruptible, from what we've seen so far. So he's somebody that would be an ally to the White Lodge and in the battle against.
And does this information have to become unlocked at a certain point, though?
Does he have all of it?
Yeah, I don't know if he has all the pieces in his head right now.
He does. So the other question is the coordinates of Jackrabbit's palace and the timing and all that. Is that the information that Evil Cooper was looking for? Mm-hmm. And getting that woman was his end goal, which is why Andy says she needs to be put in the police station for safekeeping to keep her safe. So was them getting her what he was planning to do? Does she provide some more, greater purpose for him?
Or was he going into the White Lodge to destroy it? I've also saw a theory that I needed to read into it a little bit more, but that Evil Cooper actually is kind of on the side of the White Lodge, oddly enough.
Yeah.
I've saw some theories on that, and that kind of he may not be doing the right things, but he is in service of bringing balance or whatever. It seems like he's out for himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Andy walks out, he seems like he has a more serious presence, and he's not really himself. But once we see him in the basement, he seems kind of like his old self again.
Yeah, because there's times in the series that he had more, in the original series, he had more purpose and was a more serious character. But most of the time he's kind of aloof, and he's the one that would cry at the crime scene and stuff. So we see that. Then we also see Gordon tell Tammy and Albert about his Monica Bellucci dream, which had the actual actress Monica Bellucci as herself.
Everybody was wondering what role she would play, and it turns out herself, and she barely, I don't know if she even spoke. He basically put words in her mouth, I think, right?
So Gordon had a dream that she was in, and she was talking to him about dreams.
And they drank some coffee.
They drank coffee, and he saw Cooper, but he couldn't see all of Cooper. So the dream is about, about a man about, dreams and who's the dreamer. That's where that episode's title comes from.
And she said, we are like the dreamer who dreams and then lives inside the dream, but who is the dreamer? I don't know if she says that before. She say that, and then he looks, then she motions for him to look behind himself.
She motions for him to look, and he looks and sees himself as a younger man. And that's where...
it's a scene from Fire Walk with Me. But possibly an alternate version.
Because that's where
Philip Jeffries comes in.
So it's where Cooper comes to Gordon and tells him about a dream, and then Philip Jeffries comes in and then points to Cooper and is like, "Who do you think that is right there?" or something to that effect. And to Gordon, he says that's useful information. That's interesting to think about. So is that making him think even harder about who is the Cooper that they saw and who is the Cooper that's out there?
And that right there is a dream within a dream, or it's a dream of what had happened previously when Cooper's talking about his dream. And it's, for me, the thing that hit me really hard too was, when she said who is the dreamer? Because there's been a lot of talk about is part of this dream, is part of it a reality? This could mean a lot, you know what I mean? Based on certain threads or what is happening. I saw one theory that maybe this is all moments before Laura Palmer's death, and she's dreaming about what would happen and inflating her importance.
Well, also,
Mulholland Drive and all that in Inland Empire.
Well, I've also seen theories that everything from the season finale of season 1 is Cooper in a coma after the gunshot went. So that everything that happened since then, which is where the more whimsical, dreamlike stuff comes into play, really, is, in his mind when he's recovering. And the return will be him waking from the coma eventually or something. Yeah. Interesting theory. Don't think that's what it is.
He has very vivid dreams. Well, something else I didn't bring up earlier that Agent Tammy Preston said when she was talking to Albert, she says the words tulpa, I think it is.
Yeah.
And essentially, it's when many people believe in something hard enough that they kind of will it into existence.
Yeah.
So, is that a lot of people sharing a certain subconscious, or is it, is it Albert and Gordon, for some reason, that dream or that flashback being implanted in their memory where it became a reality? For both of them. That's why all of a sudden Albert's like, I remember that now. Like, I'm remembering that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever forget that? Obviously there may have been some things with memory if there was some time manipulation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe it wasn't in the forefront of his mind, but...
Well, and too, like, the thing about Philip Jeffries, too, so there was mention that was the last time anyone saw Philip Jeffries. But earlier in the series, Albert told Gordon that he put Cooper in contact with Philip Jeffries. And the episode, and that flashback and Firewalk and all that seems to indicate that Jeffries and Cooper didn't know each other. Because he's like, who do you think that is right there? So if Cooper and Jeffries hadn't really met at that point in time or weren't acquainted, then, at what point was it that Albert put Cooper and Jeffries into contact? Was it before Twin Peaks? Was it after Twin Peaks? Because I would think it was after Twin Peaks based on the stuff that was kind of happening. Series. But if Jeffries hadn't been seen since then, how could you really put him in contact with anybody? But to the episode, the credits, it said in honor or memory of David Bowie. So to me, that's kind of indicating they did not shoot anything with him prior to his passing away. I would think I would think that they would save that for a different time versus just archival footage.
Yeah, but they could have done it in any episodes he's appeared in. But yeah,
so far,
they've said that he's not in there.
Well, so far he hasn't shown up. He's only been mentioned.
Yeah, that would have been an incredible thing to have seen. For him to have been a part of this.
So who knows? Like if we'll see an on-screen representation of Philip Jeffries, but similarly with Major Briggs, who the actor that portrayed him passed away. These are characters the actors passed away, but they're looming very large over this new season.
Which I love that they're able to bring them in, and I like that even Harry as Truman isn't just dead.
Yeah, he's still kind of in the minds of people involved.
Yeah, and he's kept up to date on what is happening. It seems by his brother.
And you have to think too. So did Frank Truman give Harry Truman the key from the White Lodge, or did he keep it as evidence to fingerprint it? Or because they were to lift fingerprints off of it, in addition to mail carriers or whatever, they could get Jade or Dougie Jones off of it. Or no, did Dougie Jones touch it, or did Jade take it out of his...
Well, he would have touched it before.
Yeah, so it should have had Cooper's prints on it, but it also had Ben Horns and all kinds of other people at this point. But, so you have those threads, and like I said, it's just interesting with, like, Philip Jeffries. Will we actually see an on-screen representation of him, even if it's just like an over-the-shoulder type thing? But...
Somebody mentioned too that, or pointed out that the man in the restroom, who I guess works on the show, from the previous episode, whenever Dougie pours the coffee out into the urinal, that his suit and appearance from behind looked just like Philip Jeffries in Firewalk with Me when he's like seen from behind.
Yeah.
I think that was if anything, just a nod, obviously. But yeah. So after that, do we go back to the prison? Maybe not.
Yeah,
but we get back to the prison at some point, and he takes Andy takes the girl down there.
Yeah,
the blind girl who is I guess the chant that Mike and Bob say sometimes is along the lines of something like the magician who dreams to see. I can't find that now.
Yeah, the poem that's Firewalk with Me.
So anyway, is she the magician? She's obviously important for her to show up like this and be protected, and to be somebody that was with Cooper. She seemed to have been being chased by maybe Mother or whatever that creature was whenever Cooper was in episode 3, and he had to escape. Remember, it was trying to bust through the door?
Yeah.
So... is that what's inside Sarah Palmer right now? Are they protecting her from Sarah Palmer?
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about what all this stuff means. And, but like, so you would think that Andy thinking that the woman Naito had to be put in the prison to be protected, to keep her there, like, you know, what connection she had to everybody else, because we've only seen her in that one episode. And the poem was, through the darkness of futures past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds, fire walk with me. So is she the magician?
Is she the link between two worlds, maybe?
Because she longs to see, because she has no eyes, and she is somehow integral in the story because she was in the room with, you know, Cooper in the kind of purple room.
So we also have Chad in the jail cell down there with her, and that other person. Is that Billy? You know, because he was bleeding from the mouth. He was bleeding a little bit.
Yeah, he had like a bandage and blood kind of his mouth, and he
seemed to have been, you know, acting like he's affected either by whatever type of drugs are going through Twin Peaks. Yeah. You know, the itchy stuff, almost like an infection type thing. You know, like the girl that vomited in the car in front of Bobby Briggs with the woman that needed to go. He was repeating everything he was hearing.
Yeah.
So again, he was like screeching. Yeah, he was screeching kind of like either monkeys or the screeching sound of the squeegee earlier. But he was repeating what she was saying, and he repeated, I think, what Andy said and Chad is saying. So very creepy scene with him, because it is so unsettling. It's just somebody saying things over and over, and almost like the blood. It wasn't necessarily blood.
It was kind of darker, yellow, like different consistency.
Yeah.
And two, you had you know, with the woman being in the basement, or not in the basement, just like in the jail cells, and she's down there and Chad's down there. So if Evil Cooper or another spirit from the lodge or the woodsman or anything comes after her, you think Chad's a goner because, you know, in Twin Peaks, the people that are bad people often can get, you know, their comeuppance, especially like a crooked cop or stuff like that. But, so, you know, will he be fodder for some, you know, creature in like a horrific looking death at some point?
Or we have a redemption story with Chad.
I don't think.
I mean, you never know though. He could do something. I'm not saying he would sacrifice himself, but maybe he could save her in some way. He seems like he would not do that, but you never know. You know, they like reversals.
So was it just me, or going back to earlier when Hawk and Bobby and everybody was in the woods, there was like kind of like a white light flashing in the bottom left-hand corner of the...
Yeah, it almost looked like a lens flare, but it was almost there so much.
It happened a number of times. It was prominent, so I was like, is this kind of like the Cooper seeing kind of the lodge over things, or seeing like the green blinking lights and stuff like that?
This is white maybe for the White Lodge. And also there was a white puddle of something instead of like the black... oil and everything. For the black, there was like a white one. I was
like
very shocked. I was very shocked to see them around the corner and be that much fog and like an actual effect. You know, like that was like, okay, there's some real stuff happening. And then the vortex opened up, like,
and they saw like kind of a little bog-looking muck thing, and then so you had all that stuff where you've seen that the things you mentioned alone move the story along a ton because. Them, like, Gordon looking into Dougie and Janie E in Vegas means that will the next episode see Gordon and Albert and Tammy in Vegas interacting with Dougie Cooper? Like, will all that accelerate that advancement? You know, is the target of Hutch and Chantel Dougie Jones? So they'll get there just in time to deal with that? Like, it's unclear exactly how long it'll take. Some stuff takes multiple episodes to play out. Something happens and then it takes till multiple episodes later for you to really see the resolution to it. But then this episode resolves so many things so quickly, or move things along so quickly, it makes you wonder what the pace of these final episodes will be.
And like you said, we've only got 3 more weeks because the last one's 2 episodes, so 4 more hours. I want to cry.
Because we have episode 15 and 16, and then 17 and 18 are being played back to back.
Yeah.
So it's going to be over soon.
I was thinking, you know, everybody wants to see, not everybody, but David Lynch said, if they were open to season 4, I would like to do it. Showtime's like, hey, we want to talk. We'll talk about it if you want to. We've heard no concrete news. You know, honestly, what I would love the most is for them to write a story shoot a full season and release it in 25 years. Like, I would love that delayed release. Like, put in new characters that are set, you know, in the future, and then you can have your flashback scenes with all. Like, I would.
Didn't Robert Rodriguez?
He shot that 100-year film. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 25 wouldn't be too bad.
Well,
you know.
A lot of things happen in 25 years.
Yeah. It flew by. I would like that. You know.
I don't
even
think...
still maybe a movie. You know, do another series and then say, okay.
I don't know about that. I'd be mad that, like, even the editor got to see what it was.
That is true.
But just
it would probably leak.
Well, and the majority of the people involved would probably pass away in the meantime of its release.
But that would make it so much more poignant. You know what I mean? Like, because that's why I said make it now, because in 25 years you can't do it. Like, Lynch will not be around in 25 years, I don't think.
Maybe he could be.
He won't be directing 18 hours of a television show.
If he was at the in his mid to late 90s, he would not be directing.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like
18 episode series.
Yeah, so I mean, man, wouldn't it be great if he pounded this out and then just, you know, like Prince, put it away in the locker, and then pull it out.
So you had like
you could sell that for like $300 for a set, you know, or
you had the Secret History of Twin Peaks that gave more background information. You had this series, and you have the final dossier that comes out, and then the other Bookhouse Boys thing. So, like, I would think that would probably wrap up the story, because I don't think Lynch really intended, from what I read initially, that there would be more episodes. Now, if it does well enough, I'm sure they can go back and have more to discover. But, like, I'm starting to think more and more, the fact that episode 14 just ended and we barely saw Dougie. Like, more and more I'm thinking it's like the last 2 episodes, if any, where we get to see Cooper become whole and not be Dougie and evil Cooper. You know, it could be the last episode, but I don't think we're going to see...
Or the very last scene of the show.
You know, a thumbs up from Cooper and damn fine coffee, all cognizant, aware... Similar to the way he was before the Black Lodge.
I heard somebody say, wouldn't it be amazing if the last scene of this was the first scene of the pilot where he's driving into Twin Peaks, like time loops back around. And then somebody else pointed out in our comments, oh man, what scene did they point out? They pointed out a scene that happened earlier in the series. I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, but I can't remember what it was, but... You know, they said, "Oh, I just had this revelation," and it was a scene in this series, I think.
Well, there's been a lot of stuff, like I said, that kind of indicates like time loops, or because even in this one, so there's another roadhouse scene in this episode.
We got the Sarah Palmer stuff before that.
Well, 2 things before that. So there's the guy Freddie talking to James. They're both security guards of the Great Northern, and Freddie tells the story about how he got sucked into the lodge with the woodsman, or not the woodsman, with the fireman. And the fireman told him to go and get this certain glove. And he gets the glove and puts it on. He can't take it off. And it gives him strength. And he tells him to go to Twin Peaks. So that's where he's at. You assume he'll have to play somewhat into the end game or have something to do with the story in the following episodes. Because you wouldn't think that, like, out of everyone that's being pulled into this story, you don't think they would give him specific information and some type of power to then not have it play into anything, him just to be around in Twin Peaks working as a security guard.
Somebody pointed out that it seems like the fireman, who, you know, he was listed as the fireman, I think, in the credits in some previous episodes, and obviously Firewalk with Me, he kind of rang the fire alarm whenever he saw the birth of Bob or whatever, and brought Laura out. So he seems to be the one fighting the fire.
Yeah.
But he seems to be recruiting people.
Yeah.
To help, you know, are they feeding stuff to, again, Gordon Cole? He gave him the glove, gave Andy some information.
Yeah.
So
he helped Cooper in the original series and at the beginning of this series.
So, you know, do we have people from the Black Lodge? Are they, you know, do they possess Sarah Palmer? You know, like what are the people they have recruited? You know, Evil Cooper, you know, was a split, but you know. Is Philip Jeffries been recruited by the Black Lodge, you know, or is he good with the White Lodge?
Because he kind of double-crossed Evil Cooper when initially Evil Cooper seemed to think that he was working with him. And then too at the Great Northern, James goes to the boiler room and hears what sounds like the hum that Ben and Ashley Judd's character had heard. So
somebody else pointed out, you know, James said it was his birthday.
Yeah.
They said, you know, this could be just non-canonical, but the only reason I bring this up is because of all the time stuff and manipulation. And Mark Frost said there was like, some inconsistencies in the secret history, and he said it all makes sense. Yeah. It's not errors, it's not me retconning stuff. That James' birthday was January 1st on an old trading card and someplace else. And now he said his birthday was today, and it's like October in the show. Yeah. So, was that specifically mentioned? Just another little hint of
like I said, the secret history contradicted the backstory of Nadine and Big Ed and some other information. So how all that plays out, and then just goes back to, is everything in this show happening in a chronological order and happening in real time? So
so did some stuff we see was stuff dreams in the original series, and this is did the archivist Major Briggs put together the actual facts, and did we see things as they actually were?
Yeah, I mean, so and two, like, so there's all the time loop stuff too. Like, the other thing is, like, so we see a scene happen with the Bobby and Truman and Andy and Hawk, and it's supposed to be on October 1st. Does that mean necessarily that a scene we see later with James and Freddie, does that mean that that's also taking place on later in the day on October 1st? Or is this a scene 3 months from now in January?
Yeah.
Or 4 months or whatever. So, like, the question is just, do the episodes all happen? Like, the Roadhouse stuff to me seems like a lot of the Roadhouse stuff could be not in order chronologically. It could just be moved around. But like I said, theoretically, like, depending on the timing of everything, was were the 9 Inch Nails the opener for James Hurley at the Roadhouse? Like, or, there's all the discussions that go on the Roadhouse too, and there was this stuff like Big Ed eating the soup. It looked like there was like kind of twitchy and stuff in the reflection, and then there was like a episode 8 in the young girl's bedroom at the very end of the episode. There was like some shadow stuff on the wall. So there's all these things that I think are intentional things being done, but like, what's the importance? Will we know? Or is it just meant to be unsettling? Like, we don't really know. And, like Big Ed, you have to think it sounded good because he's a bookhouse boy and he's always been kind of, aside from like the stuff where cheating on his wife with his old flame of Norma and all that stuff, that aside, he's a really good guy. Yeah. And so there's all these different things going on, but like...
And two, James, he told James about the firemen and all that. And James being a bookhouse boy...
Or Freddie told James.
Yes, Freddie did. When Cooper is first told about the bookhouse boys, I just was rewatching that episode, and Truman tells him, like, there's something in these woods. There's been people before us to protect it. Like, obviously James is aware that there's something beyond, like, everybody's known reality. Yeah. So it seems like he would probably take that story seriously, and maybe he'll hear about the firemen from Andy or something and say, okay, we need to get, my buddy over here or whatever. Yeah. I think James knows or is willing to accept, especially just with everything, his history with Laura Palmer and everything.
It's like, is Frank Truman one of the bookhouse boys? Because you learn in The Secret History of Twin Peaks that, like, Frank and Harry Truman and Hank, Norma's husband that was in prison or whatever, they were all on the same football team together and stuff. So, like, not that Hank was a bookhouse boy. Like, Hank was more of a character that started out decent and became bad. Or at least, started out neutral and became evil, or not evil, just into crime and, like, antagonizing.
You mean as far as his history or the history of the show?
Well, just the history, like, the history of his character, like the book of the show, whatever. But like, I don't remember them mentioning Frank Truman being a bookhouse boy.
Yeah. So the thing that the guy, somebody brought up was Anthony Devante. So he said, guys, I just had a breakthrough. Now that we know that they're presenting us scenes that are taking place in possibly different time sequences, and I'm paraphrasing what he's saying. He said he thinks that the scene we see in episode 2 or 3 when the log lady directs Hawk to the entrance of the zone. Oh yeah. He's, and he kind of walks through the dark, very unsettling scene, and then I think he may see the red curtains. He believes that this is like one of the last episodes, one of the last scenes of the series, and then and then he says something about Sarah Palmer with the frog creature, which we don't know. That's up in the air right now, I think.
Well, Duke is that's a good point.
Yeah. So that scene definitely. It doesn't seem like Hawk's been there so far, or maybe he had. It's all almost ambiguous as far as maybe not even mattering what order these events took place in.
If Hawk did see the curtains and was in the lodge or the waiting room to the lodges or what have you, and it's already happened, does that mean that he went in and a different version of Hawk came back out? And it's not really been the normal Hawk the entirety of the show?
Or was it like Andy going in the vortex? Maybe he went in there, was told something, and does not remember it yet. And will suddenly like, oh, maybe something will snap and he will remember the information he's told or what he has seen.
Because you would think from this point, though, if he was going to go to do anything in the future episodes, that he would involve Truman or Bobby or Andy, unless it's kind of they, split off to do separate tasks. Which isn't out of the question depending on how crazy things get in Twin Peaks. But since that October 1st date's already kind of been there and they've already went to that location, then I don't think there's a huge amount of
we have the
urgency.
October 2nd date.
Yeah.
And then there was another date too, right? A little bit
later.
later.
It was the 2nd, wasn't it? So there was the second date. So, but I don't think that if Evil Cooper previously being, was it Montana... Once again, we don't know the timeline of when he's there, but would he even have time to get to Twin Peaks, even if he had the coordinates? Because, what's Diane doing with those coordinates? So it's all kind of up in the air, so we're still waiting to see what happens on that. With Sarah Palmer, she's at a bar. She goes to a bar, she's walking there smoking, and she goes in and asks for a Bloody Mary. And some kind of gross trucker guy that has a shirt that says, "Truck You," comes over and starts hitting on her. And she tries to get him to go away, and he refuses and starts getting crass and vulgar with her.
And right there, something bad's gonna... I almost, before she even, led on that she was going to do anything, I almost thought Sarah Palmer's going to kill this guy. Some way, somehow.
Because then, when he won't stop it, she says, "I'll eat you."
Yes.
And then she, opens her face up.
Just like Laura.
And you see, a hand. And I saw some speculation that the hand looked like it had, an empty or a noticeable blank space where the ring could have been, or a ring could have been on the ring finger, like the owl ring, and that the finger that's the reverse finger on the doppelganger coop was noticeable or something. I didn't see that. I didn't really go back and look at screen caps. I just saw people mentioning that. But then you see this blank. There's no face. You just see teeth, and then she closes the face back up. And then bites his throat off. And then...
Does she bite his face before she closes it? I think she does. I think the teeth bite her. And then she closes it, right?
I don't remember.
Either way,
she bites his jaw or chin or whatever off, or throat off. And then steps back and starts screaming. And then, when the bartender or whoever comes over... And they ask, did you have something to do with this? And, if there's no blood on her face or on her hands or anything, it's kind of hard to imagine that she would. Or if they have a security camera, what that would even look like.
Or, it's manipulated,
Yeah.
But somebody pointed out that the teeth, they matched it up possibly to looking like the teeth from Sarah Palmer's prom photo, maybe. Or it looked like a piece of artwork that Lynch did a while back, a few years back, I think. Or was it somebody eating the creature out of the cube at the beginning of this season?
So that just brings the question. The entire thing brings the question. So did Sarah Palmer just, in the post Twin Peaks era of the show, go to the lodges and get imbued with whatever this ability is, or whatever connection she has to the lodges and all that, to be able to open her face up? Because Laura Palmer did that in one of the earlier first 4 episodes.
But hers was white. So you think, oh, she is maybe, the force of good, the White Lodge. This is definitely, seemingly, just by the imagery, a dark force.
Yes, and the fact she bites a dude's throat off, immediately following it. And so you have that. So that begs the question, did she get those powers after that? Because if you thought, that she was the girl that had the frog insect go in her mouth, and that was a negative energy that connected her.
Which for me, I think what everybody said, I'm on the side that it's not her.
Because the thing I was thinking is, in the original series, you see when Leland Palmer, when he's possessed by Bob and he kills Maddie, you see Sarah Palmer kind of pass out and scream or whatever. So you would think if she had this negative energy in her at that point, she'd be more complicit in the Bob murders and, with Leland and everything. You would think she'd be more involved with that. I mean, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
But
she seemed to be almost...
Because she had, like, visions and things.
Yeah, she seemed almost kind of normal when we first saw her in the... when we first saw her, I think she was watching TV of the documentary footage in this series. Then we saw her in the grocery store, and she seemed seemingly pretty normal because she was very scared. Like she was, you know, the scared reaction she's had in the previous series. And then when Hawk shows up, she almost seems a little off, a little bit different. Then we hear something in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, I almost think maybe somewhere in between there, maybe she was startled and scared because she had a vision of that, and then her being possessed, replaced, whatever, taken over, and that had happened since the time Hawk visited her.
And you see in the episode recently when she was watching the boxing match, like that 20-something seconds on a loop, and the weirdness going on there in her house, like what's going on there. Mm-hmm. So with Sarah Palmer, it's not really clear exactly what's going on yet. It's just that she has something going on. And
somebody, you know, brought up that like maybe in the original series there was a 12 episode gap where we don't see her. Did she go for the lodge? Like, was her message to Major Briggs literal? And I guess this is a screen cap. The message, you know, I guess what she told him was, "I'm in the Black Lodge with Dale Cooper." So, you know, is she in the Black Lodge, and this was another one to come out?
A doppelganger of Sarah Palmer. It's unclear exactly what's going on with her, but nothing good.
No, but also, I mean, she warned the guy several times. She's not out, like, just attacking people.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't and then, like, at that grocery store, the convenience store, the liquor store, whatever it was, like, when she kind of had her little meltdown, she didn't harm any of the people working there, and she didn't harm Hawk. And seemingly it's just this guy that kept provoking and being, you know, incredibly antagonistic that got killed. So, and once again, was she the one that had the frog insect go down her throat? I can still be in that the possibility because it doesn't make a lot of sense at this point to just introduce a new character as that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more of a character you're already aware of that had that happen. Just I think to make narrative sense in the fact that there's only a few episodes left.
Or it just has something to do with their previous case that we'll hear about more in the book. Yeah. And this is like maybe an introduction to this, and maybe this same thing will happen, you know, an episode later, and then we'll figure out the results of what those actions were, maybe.
Yeah. You know? So then after that, we also get a scene in the Roadhouse, which, you know, sadly was not a James Hurley performance, but it was a couple of characters that we had not seen before, Megan and Sophie, and Megan is Tina's daughter, the Tina mentioned during the conversation between Charlie and Audrey, and
who Audrey seemed to not like at all.
Yeah, Tina. And Sophie is probing Megan for information about what happened with Billy, and it seems that she was at her house with her mom Tina and possibly her uncle, but she wasn't sure. And Billy came into the house and was bleeding from his face and bled in the sink and then, like, left. And the entire time, Sophie seems very interested in the details and has kind of like a wicked look on her face when the kind of stuff with, like, Billy bleeding and whatever is mentioned. And then, two, the character, Tina's daughter, Megan, was mentioning, it seemed like she thought maybe being high or on drugs or in the madhouse or something.
She said something like the nut house.
So it's like, does that mean, is that where she would go to be on drugs? This drug that's sweeping Twin Peaks, like kind of like a opium den?
Are they saying Audrey is in the nut house for some reason?
Yeah, so it wasn't clear exactly what the references were, but you do at least get a little bit more of what was likely the information conveyed to Charlie on the phone. He was with Audrey a few episodes back in episode 12.
Did she say, did you tell anybody about this? Like, you know, is she kind of probing to know who knows?
Yeah, or it was either, did you tell anybody or did you do anything about this? Yeah. And she kind of says, no, we didn't really know what to do.
And then she says at least twice, you know, I can't remember if my uncle was there. Yeah. Which is, you know, is this... you know, what is that? You know, I don't know.
So is Sophie part of some, you know, something to do with Billy and trying to clear that up or, you know, take care of loose ends? So it's unclear exactly what their connection is, but she does have kind of like a sinister look on her face. And then we have a normal music performance for the episode that ends it. So the additional color given to the stuff with Audrey and Charlie about Billy tells me that we'll see more about Audrey in future episodes, I would have to assume. And that could tie into some of the larger narratives if Billy was in fact like somebody that was attacked by Richard or any of these things. Because when the conversation was going on between Megan and Sophie at the Roadhouse, for a while I was almost thinking it was going to be revealed that she was Audrey's daughter. Mm-hmm. But then it was that she was Tina's daughter, who Audrey doesn't like.
Because Tina had a thing with Billy. And Audrey seems to have had a thing with Billy as well.
So how all that plays out, we do not know yet, but it was not a rendition of one of the most hated moments of the original series again, so that's a positive. But with all these elements that are coming along, you can see, James and Freddie getting tied into the main narrative. Definitely Sarah Palmer being tied into the main narrative. Hawk and Truman and Bobby and everybody and Andy for sure tying into the main narrative. And then if Gordon and Albert and Tammy get into Vegas, you can see them having forward momentum with Dougie and then taking him, or...
Yeah, it's like, how's this all going to play out? You would think...
Well, and two was Diane getting asked if they know about Vegas yet, because Evil Cooper, assuming he's the one giving the messages, wants them to know about Vegas to go to Vegas?
Yeah.
Because does he what if the target of Hutch and Chantal is Gordon Cole, knowing that the information they gave them will lead them to Vegas?
I told you, I think there would be a reason to take out Albert, just based on, them knowing he was sick at the time and stuff.
Yeah.
And his character would go... But maybe they want to go in a different direction, like, let's let him live on and have a happy ending. But just because they recruited Tammy Preston, it feels like there's a possibility for them to lose
When you
somebody.
have a new character that doesn't have the built-up history of older characters, it's easier to kill them off. Or, to give you emotional
stakes.
To
try to take the lead, which they often do in a lot of series, like
the
Indiana
handing,
Jones.
The handing of the baton.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens with all that. But I think that you've seen, at least right now, with the Vegas stuff and Gordon calling their office, you've now seen the narrative thread that could theoretically bring Dougie Jones back into the Gordon and all that, the main storyline, bringing Dougie out of this kind of separate storyline, because there's not a lot for him to do at this point. Because the insurance fraud thing is kind of done. The Mitchum Brothers thing is done. The Duncan Todd stuff, he's still alive, but I assume not for long, because he failed again. So, there's not a lot of stuff left in Vegas to really tie up. Like I said, just depending on who Hutch is being sent to kill.
There's a lot more I want, though. I want a lot of scenes with Janie E. and Diane.
Janie and Diane having a nice interaction.
And I want both of them to go to Twin Peaks to interact with everybody there. I want a whole season of that.
Diane and Janie E. interact. I want to see Janie E. with, Gordon Cole.
Yeah, and I want to see Dougie walk into the Double R, and everybody be like, "Oh, Cooper!" And then he just says Dougie, and they said, "Do you want some pie?" And he's like, "Pie." I want all those interactions. I want him to make a tour of Twin Peaks,
or just Cooper.
Yeah. I want to see more Carl. Those golden shovels, there's so many things that are set up.
Does Nadine still have super strength?
Yeah.
Could she team up with Freddie?
Yeah, they can arm wrestle Cooper, or Mr. C.
Starting positions?
Yeah, maybe she was given that power, by the White Lodge.
Did she
a reason for 25 years later?
Did she keep the power after she regained her memory of not being a high schooler?
But she was always strong, because didn't she bend a pipe before that? I think she was so mad she bent a pipe before she had kind of, regressed in her memory. I may be wrong, though.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
But there's so much stuff they set up that could be so much great fodder for just entertaining scenes.
With the amount of material covered in this most recent episode, if they cover that much material in the remaining episodes, I think most people will be quite satisfied, assuming it doesn't just completely blow up the narrative anybody would want. Now, I still would not be surprised if you have an episode that's more like episode 8 again, that kind of just blows out and expands on a specific kind of backstory element, because a lot of people have almost complained that Twin Peaks: The Return has given far more backstory than they ever expected to get on Twin Peaks, and in a way you would never expect to get it. And as much time as people could argue has been wasted so far, we still have gotten way more backstory than we ever expected. And two, how much of this is kind of retconning stuff from Fire Walk With Me in the original series, just by building new story and kind of retroactively fitting stuff from the prior episodes and movie to fit into this new idea. How much of it is new material just kind of retrofitting old pre-existing story and how much of it was the plan from the start to have these stories go in certain directions.
And if you go away, if you go down the path of some of this is somebody's dream, then the retcon stuff, really, you can get away with whatever. You know, you could say, oh, this is why the logic doesn't work out necessarily, because dream logic doesn't always work out.
Well, and two, like, Lynch is known for having, stories that are more on a metaphor level or just, symbolism level that don't really have a straightforward narrative.
They're more surreal than, grounded.
Because if you watch, like, Inland Empire, there's really not, like, a thorough story thread that goes from point A to point B and it ends, exactly what happened. It's all interpretation. Mm-hmm. And, like, Twin Peaks, I think, so far, even though it's had stuff that's really out there, like Episode 8, has still given us a narrative and it's still given us forward momentum and story and structure.
I almost feel like the visions that Andy saw was almost like a mini Episode 8. And it was great because it was using all stuff we've seen before. Yeah. It was just presented in a different way, knowing that this character's getting this information. Yeah. Like, we only saw one or two maybe new shots in that entire vision, and it was amazing.
Because in the original series, a lot of times when you saw Andy stuff, it was kind of like, ugh.
It was Andy. Like, he was the Jar Jar Binks, and I say that I loved Cooper, Andy, but yeah, he was the big comic relief.
Cooper. But now it's like, okay, I want to see what he's doing because he can be a driving force in these last few episodes. Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps up our discussion of that and all the things that we are yet to know what's going to happen. So, like I said, we'll have new videos coming out for the remainder of the episodes. We also have like the other video on Twin Peaks if you want to see the international pilot. Did a bunch of videos on the X-Files, which is tangentially related because David Duchovny was in both, and it seems like Twin Peaks has now revealed that Gordon Cole started an X-Files type division in that world too. And two, if you're not aware, we also do short films and other things in addition to like a regular podcast. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you subscribe to the channel, you can go look through some of our other original short films. We got a few ones out there. I mean, none of them are like Twin Peaks-ish, really. They're more kind of straightforward horror genre stuff. But you can go out there and watch them and let us know what you think. Because we have a couple in the can that'll be coming out sooner than later. And then another one we might shoot somewhat soon, and hopefully we'll do a feature at some point in the next year. But in the meantime, we also do all videos like this and our podcast. So, keep an eye out. And if you love this, and there's suggestions for shows in the future for us to cover, too. Like, once this ends.
I was thinking, once we get all the information, let's go back through and cover every episode of the original series.
I don't know if I want to cover some of those season 2 episodes with, the Little Nicky stuff with Dick Tremaine and I don't really cover all that.
Maybe Little Nicky will come out of an orb here, on episode 17.
But yeah, so if you have suggestions for other shows for us to cover once Twin Peaks: The Return is ended, because we won't be doing any videos in the future, you can let us know that too. But yeah, so keep an eye on our channel for all the new videos and other content we're making. So I think that'll wrap up this discussion. So thanks for watching.